My name is Melissa Mercer and I'm the Managing Director of Pixel. And Pixel is a new website for displaying images according to things like geolocation and time. And our big USP is the interface, and unfortunately that's what I can't tell you about today. The interface is very graphic heavy. There are lots of animations involved in the way that you move around the site and the way the content is displayed. And this is what's made it perfect for a super fast broadband project. It's been impossible to deliver interfaces like this before to a home user because you're always limited by the speed of your internet connection. And you have to keep it in mind every time you design a new website or interface. So suddenly with superfast broadband, the possibility of this site actually became real. The business model in its simplest terms is users can upload their photos and they can license those photos for other users to use in merchandise. So if I took a photo and uploaded it to the site, someone in America might see it and think, oh, my dad would love that as a poster. They can get that poster made through our website, and the website takes a commission for organising the deal, but the rest of the profit gets passed on to the photographer involved. So it's a similar to eBay type model. And I'm in a very tricky position today because I've got some investors interested in the site, and I've got some people that are interested in looking after the merchandise arm of the site. But the site, the interface isn't protected at all at the moment. So everyone that's worked on it, we've had to get to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and it would have been impossible to get everyone here to sign one today. So I'm afraid there are no visuals with my presentation. But if anyone's interested in learning more about it, then come and find me afterwards, and we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do is tell you about what the AIR grant did for us and talk you through the content that we want to put up onto this site and the platform that we want to create. The money we got from the AIR grant was to make a prototype of the interface, and we didn't even know if it was possible. It had never been done before, and we didn't know how much it was going to cost. So we were sort of tasked with providing this working methodology at the end of it. Again, extremely bandwidth heavy site, and the success depends on the user experience, and that can only be delivered using the superfast broadband connection. So we built a prototype, and we worked using an agile methodology. So we didn't set a schedule for the first 3 months. We had a rough idea of how we wanted to do it, but we sort of met with the developers every week, set some tasks, then went back the next week, decided whether that had worked or not. And sort of the next week's tasks were sort of decided on where we were at that point. And that was really great because we actually got everything done and more that we needed to do, and it's because we worked in a really flexible way. And so we had no idea of how far we were going to get, but actually what we ended up with was a working interface, a working live site that's now password protected, but it's live. Users can register, users can upload, and they can use the interface in the way that we intended them to use it. And it's this prototype that has attracted the interest from the investors and some collaborators. So content-wise, what are we going to put on this wonderful interface that you can't see? Well, photo-wise, Facebook has 5 billion images uploaded a month. Flickr has 5 billion images in total, so it kind of seems like the photograph thing's been done. But actually, there is one part, there are a few things that haven't yet made it onto the internet. And eventually we want all photos that are worth seeing on our site. But before people start putting their stuff onto our site, we've got to give them a reason to go on there in the first place and a reason to be a part of it. So there's one area that hasn't yet made it onto the web in any real form, and that is our past. So to make the website of tomorrow, we're going to start with yesterday. And that is particular the photographic archives in our museums, libraries and archives. And I'll refer to museums, libraries and archives as MLAs from now on because it's a bit of a mouthful. So they haven't made any appearance on the web, and that's not just Cornwall, that's the UK, and it's globally. There are the odd few collections on Flickr, and you can go to the British Library website and spend a really hard 20 minutes navigating to their image collection bit and searching a very uninstinctive cataloguing system and coming back with a selection of images and then having to look through that. But there's no real way for people to really access and engage with this sort of vast asset that MLAs do have. So what we want to do is provide a platform that bring these collections together, available on one site, and essentially create a shop, a sort of shop front for these MLAs. But also it's potentially the biggest historical photographic archive in existence, and it would be one of the most extensive research tools available for everyone on the web to be able to use. So during the development, we spoke to about 8 local MLAs. We did a few big Cornwall ones and a few local small ones, and all were really keen to work with us because they really love the interface, and 5 of them have actually already given us content to put on the site. So we now have a site that you can go on, and within 30 seconds you can access 5 different MLAs, photographic collections really easily using search terms and the interface. So if you were to spend, the way it is now, if you spend 20 minutes on each MLA website and you have to look through 4 different museums' websites, that's nearly 2 hours work, whereas on our site you can get access to them all in about 30 seconds. So it sounds fairly straightforward. There's loads of photos, the MLAs are really keen, but there is one massive reason why there is an issue, and that is the fact that most MLAs have about 1 to 5% of their archives catalogued, let alone digitised, let alone with metadata attached to them. And metadata is what makes something valuable on the net. It's what makes it able to be found, to be searched. And it's all the information attached to an image. And MLAs just don't have the resources to get images digitised and metadated. And to quote Sarah Riddle, who is the Maritime Museum in Falmouth, she says, "Our photographic archiving project is a 50-year project, and that's with what they've got now, not with what comes in between now and in 50 years' time." And that's just Falmouth. That's not the National Maritime Museum. And it's the same across the board. The Cornwall Records collection, I went into a room, 2 rooms about this size, and they're floor-to-ceiling, uncatalogued photographs. And it is the situation across the board. And it's the metadata, which is the underlying reason for that. Scanning images is really, really easy once you've got the right kit, but adding the metadata is something that only can be done by hand, and sometimes images need quite a lot of research done with them before you can correctly identify them. And no MLA has spare cash to hire people to archive photos, but they are desperate to create revenue, and they know that that's where their value lies in the future and the digital world. So they're really keen to use Pixel to get their collections out there, and there's various reasons for that. The interface, they keep full copyright of their images. We are just a platform, so we're not like Facebook, who owns the copyright of your images once they've uploaded onto it. The increased audience and the potential revenue stream. It's really difficult for MLAs to create and maintain engaging image sites. It's a big financial burden on them. Creating an e-commerce system is really difficult to them. So having Pixel there, it means that they can take their content to the marketplace rather than waiting for the market to come to them. So it does make their life a little bit easier. It's free to use. We only make money when our customers make money, and invariably it's less than the customers make. And all MLAs agree that the value of an image increases when it's put next to another image, because the story becomes complete and you lose the gaps. So it's a really great, it sort of increases the value of images when they're displayed collaboratively. So there's 2 strands to the development of the website now, Pixel. We've got the actual technical development of the site. And once we've got this funding secured and in place, we'll move off the prototype and start building the real thing, which has got proper whiz-bangs and much more functionality to it. And we want to develop the site locally and use local businesses, because we will all have the benefit of using superfast broadband down here. So we want to develop a sort of microcosm of how this can be used and demonstrated, so we can demonstrate how it work on a global scale. And the benefit of being able to do it down here and in this super fast broadband environment, it's like you're working in the future. You can't do this in a normal environment at the moment. It's almost like we're working sort of a few years ahead. So we can really push the boundaries on what we're presenting, on what we're delivering here. And it is all about delivering high value content to the user as quickly as possible and making sure it's what they want to see. And then we've got the archives project, so we're creating a business model for MLAs to come together put their images on this central platform and turn them into a successful source of revenue. And we want to help them improve their metadata to a point where they're ready to come onto our site. And we do seem to be waking up to the fact that we don't have any of our archives digitised. There is money being poured into it. Birmingham Library had a big capitalisation project, of which a tiny, tiny amount has gone into getting archives digitised, but it is still an amount nonetheless. The MLA's had a few sort of schemes running called Archives in Action, which has seen a few £1 million going into digitising archives. So it is being recognised, but there is still no metadata standard across the board for how these MLAs interact with each other. It's like having loads of planes in the sky and all of them using their own air traffic control system. No one knows where the other one is. No one has an overview of where any of them are. It's not quite as dangerous as that situation, but it is sort of similar to that. So it's about harnessing funding that's out there and getting private investment, getting the site developed and creating a real push to get our local heritage digitised and uploaded. And just to give you a few details about user-generated merchandise, which is essentially the product that our site would be making. Photo merchandise in 2010 in the US, it's a 1 billion online photo ordering market, and 60% of that was photo merchandise. It's expected to grow 40% year on year between 2009 and 13. And print-based licensed merchandise is a $30 billion a year market. So it's a really good opportunity for MLAs to get involved with now. So it's got our initial development period being in conjunction with rolling out Superfast broadband in Cornwall. It positions us perfectly to sort of ride this wave of Superfast broadband being rolled out across Cornwall, the UK, and its promise to Europe in 2015 as well. So it's a really great place for us to be. And it's this, along with our prototype and the content that we're planning on putting onto the site, that demonstrates the potential of the interface and hopefully provides a really compelling case for Pixel to move forward. Thank you very much. That's it.
Are there any questions for Melissa, please? Chris?
How are you going to get their data on the metadata side of it again? Can you explain that a bit more?
How are we?
Yeah, how are you going to encourage them, or how are you going?
Well, it's not. Actually, they don't need encouragement. They just need it to be made easy and understandable. And it might be a case of us creating software for them to use to do that. But every MLA is different, and they all use different cataloguing systems. So it's also about finding a way to interface with all these different systems and unify them our end, and be able to deliver content back to them that's actually better than it was before, but slots into their cataloguing system quite easily. But every MLA is very keen on they're very happy on collaborating, but they also want to keep the integrity of their individual collections. So it's something that we've got to really work with the MLAs with, basically. It's not going to be an easy process. It's going to be difficult because there's lots of heads involved in it. So, yeah.
Just kind of related to that, if you consider kind of the users that are going to be using the site, they might have quite a wealth of knowledge about some of the photographic.
We will have.
So will there be some kind of interactivity where they could actually add further metadata?
Yes. Well, there's lots of. Like with YouTube or whatever now, you add comments and add to the story. You've got all those options, but also one of the best things about this, which really hasn't been done before, is anything that can't be identified, we're going to put in a public box and we're going to open up to the world. And his collaboration is the best way forward. Every business will acknowledge it, and it is the way forward. And the web allows us to do that. So we're going to open them up, and we're going to get people to tell us, because there will always be someone out there that knows what that photo is. They might not be in Cornwall, but there will be someone somewhere that knows what it is. So and the MLAs are really happy about that, because every time someone adds something new, it makes that image a little bit more valuable to them. So yes, that's one of our best ideas, I think, is opening it up to the public. Yeah, and offering maybe some sort of incentive. I don't know. I think we'll have to discuss that with the individual MLAs, but certainly being able to offer people some sort of incentive for doing that. I think it's definitely worth looking at as well. Yeah.
Have you thought about the the future potential for people's collections of pictures to help you identify pictures? Because I mean that task of finding the metadata is quite labour intensive.
Yeah.
And I think there was that I forget what the project was called, where they built a three-dimensional model of, was it Rome, based on all the Flickr photographs.
Yes.
And hence, you know, sort of similar principle, using huge amounts of computing power in the cloud to sort of, someone's posted a picture of somewhere that says where it is, and you match that, and then you can kind of index. Is that a direction it could go in?
I suppose that is a direction it could possibly go in. I think there's a lot of personal intervention in what you're talking about. It's Microsoft have done a lot of that with a university actually, and Google are just starting to do it now. But there's a lot of human intervention. It's not an automatic process as far as I'm aware. I mean, we'll go as far as technology allows us to go, but I don't know if there's something I'm not aware of at the moment that does that. But I think there's quite a lot of, because the people in Flickr have already said where that image is, so it's very easy to place it somewhere. And
but I was thinking, if you got a picture of a building,
yeah,
and that's 100 years old, and there's a modern picture, and they probably haven't changed that much. If you can do the pattern recognition, then with computing resource, you've taken out the human element.
Apparently, the CIA has that. I've been talking about someone recently, and the CIA has that software, and then the US military has it. Don't think
so whatever the military had 20 years ago is now probably
exactly. But the same goes for, I mean, if that image is if the building's the same as say 50 years ago, again opening them up to the public will probably remedy that problem. But yeah, anything that we can find that makes metadata mechanizes it, I suppose, and means that we don't need as much human sort of input as we do, is better because it's cheaper. But yeah, I think that's it's a long way off for people like us to get at the moment, unless we partnered with the CIA, which might be great.
There is some interesting stuff around that I saw recently, and someone's published it on YouTube, where they do images of Google search, and they sort of take an image and then look for the next image that looks like that, and it just goes sort of on and on and on. And it starts off with a picture of the universe or something, and ends up looking at people's hats and stuff like that. It just goes all over the place. Oh, right. So there's some quite, some interesting developments in image searching going on, which, in the next 5, 10, 20 years could go wherever.
It's certainly out there. You can certainly get it now.
Oh, well,
I've used it for our digital library at work.
Oh, really? Okay.
Take one picture, scan several that are the same, then go look through the rest, looking for those shapes or whatever it is.
Okay.
So,
I'll come and find you in a minute when I'm finished.
So I guess even if you just take out a number of options, so you reduce it from thousands of pictures to a few tens, then you've made the indexing problem much easier, haven't you?
I mean, the thing is with MLAs is that the biggest thing is dates, actually, when you're talking about museums, and that is something that no computer could do, and actually not many humans can do nowadays. Is sort of, dating these things is really, really difficult unless you've got a specialist there or someone that's old enough to remember it being taken. And that's something that no computer will probably be ever able to do. But yeah, I'll definitely come and chat to you about that in a bit, because it'd be really interesting to find out more. So.
Okay, just hang on a minute. Tim, so Denzel's got a question here. Go on. Sorry, we're just going to be pointed at.
Yeah, I think what you're saying about opening it out to people, making those images public will solve a lot of that. I don't know with images so much. We've shown quite a lot of video archive, film archive to the communities where it originates, and actually quite often the metadata that's there, the limited metadata that's there with it, isn't 100% accurate, and people say no, that's not 1935, that's 1933, because that pier wasn't built until then. So opening it out to the vast computing power of people's memories and brains. Validation obviously is an issue, but it's an issue anyway. So I think that's, and I think the incentive there, certainly from our experience of working with Film Archive, the incentive is just people connecting with their history. I don't think you need to incentivise it by paying them.
Yeah, sure, okay, yeah. Metadata is, we'll have an option, even with the ones that we've got with the metadata from the MLA, we will have an option saying, if this is not right, then please. Because I'm sure there'll be a few that we get wrong. There will be a few that we've got wrong, and there'll be a few that the MLAs have got wrong. But if it was easy, it would have been done. This is the reason it hasn't been done. It's not going to be an easy thing to do, but it's just about making a start. Because actually MLAs will react to things when they know they can definitely make money off them, but they're fairly lethargic before that.
Are you going to lead the conforming of that metadata? Because that's a massive issue, is people having different...
Are we going to lead it?
Yeah.
We are going to help them. We have to, because otherwise it won't get done. And actually, because everything has to be so uniform when it comes to us, there's so much work to do their end. That's why we want to start in Cornwall, because if you look at the world or you look at the UK, you just want to cry because of how big the task is. But if you start with Cornwall, it's where I know people. Yeah, it's manageable. And actually, once a ball's rolling, it carries on going. And it's about... As soon as you've demonstrated it to them that it works and they can make a bit of money, they will do it. But it's quite lethargic at the beginning, getting them to do it, and you have to sort of help them a little bit. So, and metadata, the one thing I've learned, I'm computer savvy, and I've learned that I know nothing about metadata. You need a specialist, and the MLAs don't know anything either, because they are not computer tech savvy a lot of the time, the people that are dealing with the archives anyway. So it's really difficult to get your head around metadata. It really is. And it's changing all the time. So it's also about providing something that is going to be fine in 5 years' time for them to still use.
If you crack it, there's another market with film archive that you could...
Yes, I'm sure there is. Yeah, that's our next step. Get this one done first.
All right, we're going to have to draw that to the... One last quick one from Lee.
Well, yeah, if you thought about an app that links to the site so users can take pictures on their phones, and when they upload, it will give GPS of where that location is.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So that will help with location and geo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a big part of it.
Did I have a question? Yeah. I'm just interested in how, whether your business model has considered that the organisation of information, as opposed to making information available or more accessible, how much you're kind of dealing with that, because of course there are arguments that is where it will be monetized, because we have so many images now. Yeah. It's like a butter mountain, and it took a long time for people to realise that they actually needed less cows, but we still have quite a few. But how much are you kind of in that territory? Because that's of course the choices that the archives have made about what in fact got digitised was against some notion of what was most relevant, which I know was very partisan. But there is an argument that's actually where the money is, in being able to organise information.
But that's
as opposed
what metadata is. That's what it allows you to do. That's what metadata does. It's the organisational part.
But it's also to do with hierarchies, and it's the kind of almost becomes you could even say it's ethical, or you could even say it's commercial, are the drivers in terms of what gets chosen first.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of throwing it in as kind of where some of the demand lies in terms of organisation of information, in terms of what moves into that particular space first.
Well, I think that's largely up to the MLAs. They're the experts, and they know what they sell.
That's what they want. That is what a lot of what they talk about. They want help with that, as opposed to the vehicle or the mechanism.
But one won't work without the other.
No,
they can organise
it
as much as they like, but if it's not out there, no one's going to see it, no one's going to make any money out of it.
But it's kind of like where your business model sits in relation to that is my question. I'm not expecting you to answer it now, but I just think it's where there is a lot of commercial opportunity.
Sure, okay.
As opposed to the vehicle.
Yeah, okay.
Because otherwise the vehicle would just be a big library. But it's the organisation of information and making it hierarchically available.
Okay. Come and talk to you.
Good start. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay.